In this video tutorial, we're going to demonstrate how to configure the step table object in Dream Report. The step table is a very powerful table object that allows you to create a table automatically with a predefined time for each row or step in the table. It gives you full control of not only the time interval for each row of data, but also what data, statistical function, or expression is shown in each column, as well as full control over data filtering and of formatting and display options in each column. Additionally, a table footer can be included in a step table. So how can a step table be used? For example, you might want to create a monthly energy usage report by day, or maybe a daily water treatment report summarizing key process parameters by hour. To configure a step table, start by placing a step table on a report and specify how many columns will be needed. Select an overall time period over which the data will be reported, and then select and configure the step period. The step period can be fixed time intervals, batch-based intervals. In this case, Dream Report will use the time period of each batch ID as the step interval, value range based, and based on the timestamps of all available data over the time period. We then go to the Appearance tab to configure the specific data to display. Define the column type for each column. This can be the step index or row number, the step start time, the step end time, step data using one of the many available statistical functions in Dream Report, compound data, which is an aggregate across two or more other columns, and then any free-form mathematical or logical expression. If needed, add a table footer to summarize the data in any column. And then set table appearance options like fonts, colors, and lines. And what you get on your report is a very content-rich table. Let's demonstrate how to use the step table. We'll start off by opening a blank Dream Report project in Design Studio, in which I've simply created a couple of data sources and a batch definition, which we'll use later. I'll create a new report and name it Monthly Energy Usage, with the output format being PDF. Now, from the Report Objects toolbar, I'll select Step Table and place it on the report. I'll specify 3 columns, as I want to display the month and then the average daily temperature and energy usage. For the time period, which is the overall time period of the report, I'll select Current 1 year, as this will be a year-to-date report. Next, I need to select the subperiods or steps to report on. So I'll select the step period being time-based on 1-month intervals. Next, I'll go to the Appearance tab, where I'll select the tags to report on and configure the look of the table. Let me enter a descriptive table name to display. And now I'll enter captions I want to display for each column in the table. I need to define what will be displayed in each column now. For the first column, I want to display the relevant month. So for the column type, I will select Step Start Time, which is the start of that subperiod, and then format that date stamp to only show the month name. For the next 2 columns, I'm going to select Step Data, and after selecting the appropriate tag for each column, I'll use the built-in average statistical function for each. All I have left to do is to set my display options like fonts and colors. If no data is available to report on for a particular step period, we have the option of displaying NA, repeating the last reported value, or using the value from the next step period instead. Let me resize the fields to fit, and then finally place a report header with a report name and year using the appropriate dynamic text objects. I'll load and save the report and then generated. And there you have a nicely formatted step table showing average energy usage and monthly outside temperature for the year to date. Okay, let's return to Studio so that we can add a footer to the table to show the overall min, max, and average for each column. I'll double-click the step table and return to the Appearance tab, where I'll click the Footer button. I'll click the Add button 3 times to add 3 footer rows. And I'm going to add static text labels under the first column for min, max, and average. Next, I'll go to the Average Energy Used column and add compound data objects to calculate the min, max, and average of that column. You'll notice that I select the name of the object that I assigned when I configured the step table, and then tell Dream Report to do the appropriate summary calculation for each one. I'll repeat the process for the temperature column, and then I'm done. Finally, we'll format the footer, and then save and regenerate the report. And there's our footer with the data nicely summarized. I'm going to return to Studio to make one last edit to the step table. I want to highlight any cell in the report where the average daily energy used was above 275 kilowatt hours. I'll edit that column and go to the Result Representation tab, where I'll select Advanced Options. I'll check if the range is 275 or higher, and then change the cell color to red if that condition is met. We'll save and generate this report one last time and see the results of this advanced visualization setting. And there our attention is drawn to the month of July, which had the highest average outside temperature, showing the most energy consumed, probably being used for air conditioning. The next report I want to create will be a summary of all batches that ran last year. I'll create a new report and name it Batch Summary, with the output format being PDF. Now, from the Reporting Objects toolbar, I'll select a step table and place it on the report. I'll specify 8 columns as I want to display the batch ID, start and end times, batch durations, as well as some key process parameters. For the time period, the overall time period of this report, I will select the last 1 year. Next, I need to select the subperiods or steps to report on. So in this case, I'll select the step period being batch-based on 1 batch intervals. First, I'll enter the captions I want to display for each column, so I know what I'm working with. I'll need to define what will be displayed in each column now. For the first column, for the column type, I'll select step data, and then without needing to select any tags, simply select the appropriate batch function from the list of statistical functions. I'll repeat this for the batch start, end, and duration columns. For the batch duration column, since I know that these were long-running batches, I'll change the output format to include days, hours, minutes, and seconds. I want to get the levels in tanks 1 and 2 at the end of each batch. So we'll choose last value function for these 2 columns. I'll select the appropriate tags from my data source. I'd also like to show the total production level on hand at the end of each batch, so we'll use an expression object for the 7th column and simply select the 2 previous column functions and sum them here. For the final column, I'm going to select step data to report the energy used for each batch. I'll select my energy meter tag from the list and then select the counter function. This function will take the meter reading at the start of the batch and subtract it from the meter reading at the end of the batch to get the actual energy used for that batch. All I have left to do is set my display options like fonts and colors. Let me resize the fields to fit. And then finally, I'll apply a pre-built page template to the report to give it a nice appearance. I'll save and load the report. And then generate it. And there you have a very useful report showing all batches that ran last year nicely summarized. Notice that the table steps are different durations, as they are based on the duration of each batch and not a fixed time interval like we saw in the previous example. Thank you.